Good afternoon and welcome to Career and Technical Education Class Number 4, Education for Employment. My name is Mrs. Ashburn. Our objectives for today, we will be discussing communication skills. We will have a discussion activity. Next, we will compare and contrast, have a dialogue, discuss barriers to communication, and finally, we will be completing a journaling activity. Remember, you should be in a quiet place at home if possible. Maintain an appropriate learning environment, just like you were in school. Make sure you have your materials ready for class. Please make sure there are no interruptions. If you have any questions, you can reach me by email. And finally, no cell phones are allowed in class. For communication skills, we will describe or demonstrate how you communicate. Take this time to discuss with a family member how you communicate. Finally, how likely are you to communicate with an employer at a job interview? Take this time to act out with a family member. How would you communicate with friends, family, or employer? You may stop the video if you need to. Awesome job. The purpose of this activity is to encourage you to discuss the different types of communication you may need to use in different situations and environment. I will introduce the idea that language or communication varies by context, and that it is important to understand what might be acceptable and expected in one setting may not be appropriate in another. The materials you will need for this activity is Activity 2 handout, which is located on our Google Classroom page, and a pencil or a pen. You may stop the video to get your materials. For Activity 2, flipping the switch. Consider the following situations. You will be creating a list, discussing, or draw a picture to encourage you and a family member to act out the different ways one might communicate using the following groups: friends, family, or in a professional situation. Why is each situation different? What are the expectations of each person? What would happen if you greeted your friends in the way you greeted an interviewer? And finally, what would happen if you greeted an interviewer the same way you greeted your friends? When thinking about this activity, keep in mind verbal and nonverbal communication. Verbal communication is what we say and how we say it, also considering our tone of voice, while nonverbal communication may be facial expressions, behavior, and body language. So now let's look at the different situations. Situation number 1, saying hello or goodbye. How might you say hello or goodbye to your friends, family members, or a professional? You may complete this activity now. Situation number 2, asking for help. Situation number 3, emailing or texting. Situation number 4, showing excitement. And finally, situation number 5, you will be creating your own. Please make sure you complete at least 2 situations and also situation number 5 by creating your own. Knowing how to communicate with people in the right context for a given situation is an important skill, as there are often unspoken rules and standards that are just expected. For example, it's common practice in the professional world to shake hands with people when meeting, rather than offering a high five or a hug. We might use slang with our friends when talking about what happened at school or at a party, but we would usually use different words and mannerisms when telling our parents the same information. So let's have an open dialogue. Does the message change if you're talking to your friends or if you're talking to your parents? Why or why not? What are some examples of communication, both verbal and nonverbal, that you should always try to practice when communicating with an employer? How would your friends react to you if you communicated with them in the same way you would to an employer? We will now create a journaling activity. You may stop the video if you need to get your journal. We all communicate differently with different people in our lives. Does the way you communicate affect how others perceive you? Explain. In this lesson, we discussed communication skills. We had a discussion activity. We compared and contrasted communications. We dialogued. We talked about the barriers to communications. And finally, we completed a journaling activity. Any questions? Make sure you email me, and please be sure to put CTE Activity 2 in the subject box. This assignment is due no later than Saturday at 11:59 p.m. Any questions? Please email me. Thank you.